impact mapping, opportunity solution tree, assumption mapping, assumption testing, solution testing, value proposition canvas, business model canvas, lean canvas, etc., etc. There's so many tools. Isn't it a lot of overhead to always start from scratch and build these things up and fill these canvases out and create those trees and this kind of things? What about those ideas that are actually easy? Can't we just build them and release them and see what happens? This was a question that I got today, and it's a question that I get quite often actually. And today was one of those days. From a product team that I'm coaching, or in a Q&A with them, for a company that I'm running product discovery trainings at. And it's a very valid question. And the answer to that question is obviously no. You don't have to do all of these all the time from scratch. But why and when do you actually need to do that or should do it? That is probably the bigger question. I created a sketch for them on Miro. That is it. That's what you see here. And I thought this might be helpful for others out there as well who ask themselves the same question. So let's start. In context, this team works with Itamar Gilad's GIST framework, goals, ideas, steps, and tasks. But you don't have to work with the GIST framework to follow the same logic, right? This logic works for any kind of idea that is on your plate. So I mentioned any kind of idea because that's basically where we start. If we say, hey, what about this idea? Should we just, build it, or should we really run those whole big discovery activities or not? And that's a good starting point. Now, for each idea that you have, ask yourself first these two questions. A, is it a risky idea? And B, is it a big idea? As in, does it require a lot of effort to build this idea, ship it, maintain it, etc.? And it's not just technical effort. It's like any kind of effort. Maybe it's an idea where you need to be aligned with 20 teams to actually make it happen, right? That's also part of effort. So any kind of effort. So think in that way, right? And then you have to first answer these questions. And the easy answer, or the easy way to answer the first question is, actually, there are tools for that. You don't have to run a whole assumption mapping. You can, but you don't have to. The easy way to answer this question is it a risky idea? You take Itamar's confidence meter and map it against the confidence meter and see if you have a lot of confidence, then it's probably not a risky idea. If you don't have a lot of confidence because not enough evidence, well, then you could consider it as a risky idea. So you could say, yes, it is a risky idea, right? The second easy way to answer this question is it reversible or not, revertible or not? Can we just take it back after we have rolled it out and there is no harm in that? That's what Jeff Bezos calls one-way door and two-way door decisions, right? Is it easily revertible? The third way to answer this question, and ideally you have a combination of these, right? But it might be just very easy to answer the question. But a third way to do that is answering the questions, how often can this happen? And if this happens, is it a big fuck up or not? So this is a question that we use quite a lot for bugs, but also for features. You can think of it in this way, that you ask yourself, if this feature doesn't work, like how likely is it that it's not going to work? Is there a big likelihood or small? And if it doesn't work, is it going to be a big fuck up that it doesn't work or not, right? So you can phrase it in this way. And the answer to one of those questions, or in combination, these questions in combination, will be yes or no. Why I have assumption mapping here on the site is, you can also do assumption mapping to figure out if it's a risky idea or not. But you don't have to, at this point, you don't have to go through all the assumptions, you don't have to do assumption extraction. It's enough if you can just have a discussion on the 5 big questions. Do they want this? Can they use this? Should we build this? Can we build and maintain this? Is there any potential harm? You can set yourself a time box of, I don't know, maybe 15 minutes and discuss these things. And during the discussion, you will get the feeling of how aligned you are on those points and how risky those points are. And if in the majority of the cases you answer the question of, your answer to the question is, I don't know, well, then it's probably pretty risky. All right, so you end up with having a yes or no answer to that question. Then you look at the effort idea, or the effort question. Is that a big effort? This is a lot of effort to build it. So, and the answer can be no, yes, or maybe. If it's maybe, then you do some discovery and research, right? So maybe you need to do some research. Probably it's more discovery. Maybe some POCs or like some stakeholder conversations or cross-team conversations or so, and then you figure it out if it's a lot of effort or not, right? So then you come back to the question and answer the question: is it big effort or not, with yes or no? And then we have a level of impact. So this kind of like the ICE scoring, but I take impact as a placeholder for anything that means value, right? So do we expect a lot of impact, like to create a lot of impact with this idea, yes or no? If your answer is no, so if your answer is the impact that we expect is low, and we have quite some evidence for that it's going to be low, then don't think about the idea at all. Even if you don't have a lot of evidence, but you have the indication that says, like, yeah, it's probably not going to be a game changer, then don't look at the idea, right? So dismiss this. This is a trap of the low-hanging fruits. But if you expect quite some big impact, now the magic happens. Now let's bring the pieces together. So is the idea risky? Let's say no. And the impact that we expect is at least somehow like big, right? Medium to big. Well, then simply try it out, right? And see what happens. If it's also easy to build, right? So not risky, easy to build, quite some impact. Well, then try it out and see what happens. But before you do that, make sure you define success criteria to understand afterwards, when you do the after launch analysis, if it was really successful or not. If your answer is no, it's not risky, but it is quite big actually, then you have, and we do expect quite some impact, then you have to the choice to either throw the idea away because it's just too big to build, maybe it's completely not feasible to build, right? Or you think, what is a smaller solution that would create the same impact? And for that, we need the outcome conversation, right? So we need an outcome as a goal to work towards, to make sure that any solution we build pays into the same outcome, right? So we need that conversation. And then again, once you build that small thing and launch it, right? So when you have a small solution for that, then it comes into the try it space. And for that, you need a success criteria before you build it that you can measure after you have launched it. Good. What if the answer is no, it's not risky, but yes, it's pretty, no, we had that. What if the answer is yes, it is pretty risky, but actually it's quite easy to build? Then your options are that you, and the impact is high, right? Expect impact. That you either, again, just try it out because it's small to build. And again, there you need a success criteria, and you need to monitor it very, very closely because it's a risky idea, right? So you need to be on top of it. Yeah, like you cannot slip it away. Yeah. Or you run experiments. In that case, we want to, in general, for risky idea, we want to build experiment chains or experiment series, not just have one experiment. But for that idea, you have to see which very pointed experiments you want to run to understand if you should build it or not, because it's an easy to build idea, right? So you don't want to exaggerate on the experiment part, but you want to make sure that you have at least some feeling of how risky it really is. If you say it is risky, it's a potentially impactful, very impactful idea. It is risky and it is difficult to build. Well, first thought is it's potentially a strategic idea then, yeah? So keep that in mind. But in general, you can decide to not build it at all, which is something I would probably not really do. You can find a smaller solution, and then it gets into this try out or experiment space. Or you experiment the hell out of it with multiple experiments to understand if the idea is really, really, really worth taking the risk, and to actually de-risk the idea and find the right way to implement it, to implement the solution. So that means when you're on this level of try out or experiment, or find a smaller solution or experiment, here you have to decide whether you're on the solution level and run assumption tests, or on the solution of the solution level and run solution tests. An example of that is if you say we want to help, or we want to increase the number of signups for our solution, like our big product, and your idea how to drive that number is to show leads, let's say, visitors, a demo version of what happens when they sign up, then this is a solution space, right? So then you can think of, well, do we really need the demo? Will this be the successful, will this be the feature that will drive sign up successfully? Versus, what is a demo? Is it just a screenshot that shows how it looks like after you sign up? Is it a GIF? Is it an explainer video? Is it a real demo environment that you can find in, for example, in analytics tools like Amplitude or Mixpanels? Like, what does demo mean? In that case, we're in the solution testing space, right? So, and here is where you can decide what you need. Where are you on this level with this idea? Are you on the solution level or the solution of the solution level? And that means that this is where you definitely need impact maps or opportunity solution trees or assumption mapping, solution testing, like anything, like any activity that helps you understand what's happening, right? Here you need to put in some more effort. The other place where you need to put some more effort is this maybe space about the effort, right? Is it a big idea, as in, do we need to put in a lot of effort? Well, here you might need to, maybe your experiments look more like we need to build a POC and see if we can actually build it, right? #AI, or run conversations with stakeholders. The other part where you do need some activities go deeper into is to understand whether the idea is going to be impactful or not, right? And these are the spaces where I'd say, yes, there you need to pick something, a discovery tool that works for you in that context and for figuring it out, whatever it is. And this can be like those big trees, but it can also be mini trees. Yeah? So you don't have to build up the whole space. It might be like your question might be very, very focused and very narrow on a specific topic, and then you build up a small tree that shows the connection between the outcome that you're trying to achieve, the actors in that space, their desired outcomes, and their outcome map or their pains and gains and jobs, for example, and then the solutions here, right? And then run testing. So you can do lots of things. Or you might end up saying, okay, we need to do some data analysis to figure that out, whatever that is. Or you use the learnings from your experiment to iterate, right? But in these red spaces is where the magic happens with all the discovery activities. So in these paths where you see the stars, you actually have you don't have overhead, right? So you just decide yes or no and do something and see what happens. Also in here and also in here, right? So you don't have to run activities, discovery activities, on those paths. Then the question is, of course, well, the big tree, like this big understanding of what's happening, where do we need it then? Well, now connecting it to the GIST framework, this is where you need the where you need it, or where you need it is when you collect the ideas, right? Because where do ideas come from? Well, they can come from anywhere, like stakeholder wishes, your own ideas, right? Your team's ideas. You did a design sprint and now have 50 million ideas after that. You analyze your data. The data is also a source for discovery, right? There you can find a lot of problem spaces, and then you have ideas how to solve that. You get feedback loops. You have released something and get feedback, and there are lots of ideas as well. And so on and so forth. And of course, your impact map, like your big impact map, or your opportunity solution tree, or the value proposition canvas, like whatever, your business model canvas, lean canvas, and so on, wherever you get the ideas, anything is valid. What's important is that you come out with a problem definition and a hypothesis that lead to that idea, right? And that's where we do all those discovery activities. And then to connect it further with the GIST framework, we don't want to do random discovery activities. We want to do them based on something that we're trying to achieve, which is the goal in the GIST framework. And this is how we connect the dots and make sure that we don't do too much overhead. And when I zoom out, then it looks like this, because we have specific goals that we're trying to achieve. We do some discovery activity to come up with the ideas. And then again, like somewhere here is actually a feedback loop, right? We build stuff, but let me talk you through. We get some ideas. We try to understand if it's a risky idea or not, how big the idea is, and if there's actually any impact that we expect from it or not. And then we decide if we just try it out and see what happens, if we make it smaller, if we run experiments, or again, try it out and monitor very well, or if we run more experiments to make sure we have de-risked the idea, right? And then we decide if we do assumption testing or solution testing, and we build, right? So this is missing here. So we put these things into delivery in the end, right? So we deliver, and then what we get here is we get a feedback loop, right? So here now we can connect what we learn from here and say from the feedback loop, we get more ideas, right? And here we close the loop, and here we have the feedback loop, right? So, and therefore, so again, what we don't want to do is we don't want to spend endless time in discovery activities. We want to make sure we understand when to do deeper discovery activities, when to do light discovery activities, and when not to do them at all, and just go with trying things out and measuring if it worked or not. Hope this was helpful for people who ask themselves the same question over and over again, and or not just ask the first time. It's also fine. Yeah, let me know if you have questions.